What is going on, guys? Josh Betar, full from the stands, and in today's video, I'm going to be playing matchmaker for UFC 312 in Sydney on February 9th. Now, I will put a disclaimer in this before I kick things off. This is only my thoughts, my predictions. This is not leaking any news. I don't know of any fights that have been targeted or anything yet for UFC 312. I am simply speculating and throwing my predictions and the names I'd like to see out there for you guys to enjoy. What I'll do is I'll kick off with the main event. Who will main event UFC 312 in Sydney next year? Um, I think it is a clear number one fighter that will fight on that card. I think it'll be Dricus du Plessis. I think Dricus du Plessis will defend the middleweight title in February next year. Um, I believe a lot of factors play into DDP returning to Australia again. Um, for him being in South Africa, it's only an 8 hour difference, an 8 hour time difference that is from here to South Africa. Um, it's a shorter flight than going to the States. There's a lot of things. He obviously just fought here in Perth on the other side of the country for UFC 305. So he has an affiliation with a lot of Australians, Jackson Doherty and a lot of these guys. So he has a lot of Australian friends. And I think we will see Dricus du Plessis once again return to Australia and defend his middleweight title against. Now, there is a two-man race for this, I believe. I think at the moment it is Sean Strickland. I think we'll see Sean Strickland challenge Dricus du Plessis for the middleweight title again. Um, Dana confirmed it a few weeks back when asked. He did say Strickland is next. There were some talks with Morne Vissa saying that Rob Whittaker was a possibility for that card, and that they're now preparing for Rob. Look, I think if Rob goes out and completely dominates Khamzat Chimaev, and if he goes out there and if he was to finish Khamzat Chimaev, there's a very good case that Rob does leapfrog Sean Strickland. Uh, Eric Nixick, Sean Strickland's head coach, knows that himself. He even said the same thing. He said that if Rob does have an amazing performance against Khamzat, that it is very likely that he could leapfrog Strickland, be it that it is in his home country, it's in his home state. Um, I think we'll see either of those two. I think we're either going to see Dricus du Plessis versus Sean Strickland 2, Dricus du Plessis versus Rob Whittaker 2. What I would like to see more, um, man, I don't have an answer on that. I think like I really have to think about it. Who I would want to see get that rematch more. From a deserved standpoint, they're neck and neck. Maybe Sean deserves it a bit more because I feel like that first fight with Dricus was so razor thin close. You could have given it to either one of them, and he never really got his immediate rematch. He lost the title, and that was it. He moved on to Paulo Costa, which he defeated, as did Whittaker. Whittaker's obviously made a case, beating Costa, beating Aliskerov, and now if he wins and defeats Chimaev, that's a pretty good resume. Um, he will at least be next in line. I think. I don't think you'll be seeing him fight contenders again. Whittaker, I think if he beats Hamza and he doesn't get the next shot in Sydney, then I think you will see him down the line get a shot. He'll be the one after that fight. Um, that's where I'm at for the main event. For the co-main event, um, I think last Thursday when it was announced, Alexander Volkanovski came out and he was the one saying that he wants to appear on this card. He's doing everything he can to appear on this card. Hence why I don't put him in that main event position because of this reason. I think when the UFC comes to Australia, the last two times, it's been a single championship fight card, meaning there's only been one championship defended on those two cards. The last time there was a two championship card was Perth last year for UFC 284. Obviously, we had Volk and Islam in the main event, and then in the co-main event we had Josh Emmett and Yair Rodriguez for the interim featherweight title, which is where I think Volk fits into this. I don't believe we will see Volk fight for a undisputed featherweight title in Sydney. I do, however, think we will see Volk fight for an interim featherweight title in Sydney. And I think that man will fight Diego Lopez. I think that is the fight that we will see in Sydney. And these are my reasons for that. Um, Now, a lot of this depends on the outcome of this weekend's Max Holloway versus Ilia Topuria in Dubai. A lot weighs on this, but uh, if Holloway was to win this weekend, there's a good chance you could see Holloway and Volk throw down in Sydney. I think there's a good chance. Um, I'm not super confident. I'm not saying it's 90, 95%, but I think, 60, 65%, 70, depending on where, things work, depending how the fight goes, who knows? It could be a car crash and maybe Holloway's out for 6 months and he wins. Who knows? Um, I think you have a better chance of seeing an undisputed featherweight title fight with Volk in it if Holloway wins this weekend. If Ilia Topuria wins, I don't think there's any chance we see Ilia Topuria versus Alexander Volkanovski in Sydney for the featherweight title. Um, One reason being those two, if you have that rematch, that's going to be a main event. Um, and the second reason is I don't think Topuria wants to come to Sydney. I don't think he wants to come to Volk's backyard when he's the one who defeated Volk. Why should he? I feel like he feels like why should he come to our home country and defend his title against Volk when he knocked Volk out? I mean, I kind of understand his point. Um, but that's where I believe Diego Lopez fits into this little equation. That man's been on a tear, just beat Brian Ortega, has had some been great fights this year, been very active, and is number three in the division. And with Holloway locked up, with Taporia locked up this weekend, I think it's only 5 months away. February's only 5 months away. I, I feel like it may be too soon for those guys, depending how this weekend goes. Um, yeah, I don't feel like Tapori is going to want to come to Sydney, but I know Diego Lopez would 100% welcome that. Volk said he would welcome that, an interim title fight. And I think that's where what we're going to see is an interim title fight and the co-main event featuring Alexander Volkanovski and Diego Lopez. Great fight for both men. Great fight for Volk. Great fight for Lopez as well. I mean, imagine you go out there and you defeat Volkanovski in his home country, but then also Volk gets to walk out in front of his hometown fans. I mean, he's from Sydney, he's from Wollongong down that way. So, for him to walk out in front of his family and friends in Sydney would be a special one. Especially after I asked him at the UFC 293 fight day, Volk came in and he said he has to be on Sydney. He mentioned it last week. He has to be on Sydney. So I do think we'll see Volk in some capacity. I just don't think it'll be in a main event setting. I think it'll more than likely be in a co-main event setting, especially after his loss. He isn't the champion anymore, so he doesn't really necessarily guaranteed a main event slot anymore. But moving on to some other fighters I think could feature on the card. Um, Now, in a perfect world, everyone in Australia who fought on Dana White's Contender Series this year that got contracts could fight on the card. Um, Unfortunately, timing wise, I don't think many people are going to be super happy with how things work out. Um, Fighters, that is, just because of how stacked everything is at the moment. Everyone's wanting fights. Tom Nolan wanted to get back in before the end of the year. He couldn't get a fight because everything's log jammed. It's booked up at the moment. They have so many guys that fought on Contender Series that got contracts. It's hard just to give everyone fights. But I think Tom is a guy we will see on at UFC 312. Obviously, he had a very good showing in Perth, and defeated Alex Reyes by unanimous decision. And had a really good showing. And I think timing wise, I think it works out for a guy like Tom. Another one I think we'll see is a guy like Steve Urseg. Timing wise, again, I think it'll work out for him as well. Hasn't been seen since UFC 305. Wants to rebound, get back on the horse. So I think we'll see Steve feature on UFC 312. Um, some names that I think could feature that fought on Contender Series this year are guys like John O'Micallef and Cody Haddon, mainly because of their finishing ability. Um, I think you put those guys on that card. I think it adds. Cody's boxing obviously is insane. Jono's finishing ability, look what he did. in his Dana White's Contender Series last fight last week was incredible, completely dominant, and huge congratulations to him for getting that done as well. Um, Other guys like Quillan Salkeld, I think we may see before that. I think we may see Quillan. I think he may slot in towards the end of the year on a prelim on a fight night or potentially that 310 slot. Who knows? Maybe even the January card. I think as much as the guys here in Australia want to feature on that card, they also just want to fight. So I don't think everyone's hell bent on being on that card, but obviously they would love to being in their home country. Um, but I do think we'll see guys like John and Mikulev. I think Cody Haddon will make an appearance. Um, then you've got guys that are already established within the UFC that the UFC loves to bring and put on their pay-per-view cards. Guys like Justin Tafa, Junior Tafa, Tai Tuivasa, Jake Matthews. I mean, you got so many guys. Jack Della's out there still. I mean, Jack Della's surely going to feature in Sydney. I saw a bogus report today that Jack Della's signed to fight Kamaru Usman. I mean, that's not confirmed or signed at this point. So, but he is definitely a guy you want to see compete in Australia. Obviously, didn't get the chance in Perth a few months ago, so he's one that will definitely be itching to get back and compete in front of his home fans. Um, but that is it for me at this point. I think that's just who I think will feature on this card. Unfortunately, I think guys like Stewie Nicol, who featured in Perth, I don't know if we'll see Stewie in Sydney as much as I'd like to say so. I think maybe an Apex fight is more than likely what would be next for him, which is completely fine. But I think he needs to get his mojo, get some mojo going in the UFC. Get a win or two, and then you'd look at putting him on a pay-per-view prelim opener or those sorts of things. But I think we'll see, just to recap: Urseg, Nolan, Della, Cody Haddon, Johnny Mikulev, Justin Tafa, Junior Tafa, Tai Tuivasa. Jake Matthews has been very, very clear that he wants to fight on that card. Kevin Jusay is another name he wants on that card. And if there is a featherweight fight that falls out last minute, I know there is a man in Khan Offley who will take that fight. Khan obviously very unlucky not to get a contract this year when I don't know how this Ultimate Fighter works, where he beats Nathan Fletcher in the first round of competition. Khan makes it all the way to the final and loses to the final, but Nathan Fletcher gets signed to the UFC. Make that make sense. But in a short notice fight, even a signing, don't be surprised if you see Khan Offley on that card either. He's well and truly earned it at this stage as well. But that is it for me today, guys. Thank you so much for checking this video out. If you haven't already, please subscribe. And yeah, thank you for all the support lately. It means a truckload to myself and to Alex. Until next time, guys. Peace.